Alright guys, welcome back to Natal B Reefing. Thanks for watching. This is the video on how we moved the Aqua 1 Mini Reef 120. So this was setting up a sump clean. So basically what we did was we took the return pump, disconnected it from the display tank, stuck it into the refugium after we removed the keto, the biomedia and Danny from the sump, and we switched it on and just let it run and run and run and run, and all it was doing was kicking up some crap and I shouldn't have said that, kicking up some horrible stuff and basically just making sure it ended up in the skimmer. So in there was the keto and the biomedia. That was that. Now we let the water out about halfway, and as the water went down I was just removing live rock. So as it became exposed I took it out, and as it exposed any of the little frags or the bits of coral I removed them, and then I got over it, so I just took all the coral. Only about 5 minutes or so had gone by, and you can see how much clearer it already was. So it didn't take long, and basically you could see the skimmer cup filled up pretty much with about halfway with just really mucky water, and the water is starting to clear. So all that was there is gone. A whole bunch of the stuff out there was gone. So as a little sump clean technique, which I learnt on CJ's aquarium channel, it works very well. Now if you have it set to minimum, what would happen is it would fill up really quickly. So I just had it a little bit more open at the bottom, which allowed it to skim slightly drier, but it still had all that horrible stuff. So every now and again you just remove the pump from the one chamber to the next chamber, kick up some dirt and let it get sucked up into the skimmer. So here at the top you see where I put all the little frags. So all the little frags are in there. Basically everything. I removed all the pieces of coral except that one morph which had jumped off and stuck to the rock. So all the coral was in there. One of the old little sort of I don't know what you would call that's not a wave maker, it's more like a little pump just in there to move the water around, and there was the live rock. So like I said, as it became exposed I removed it. At this stage all the rock was exposed, so I took it all out. Now you can see Wiz and JP in the corner. Wiz is very scared, and there's Danny right there in the middle. He is very skinny. Like after Danny chowed him and bit him and everything, he hasn't been eating, and I'm worried about him. I don't know how long he's gonna last. So yeah, there's Wiz staring straight at the camera, and JP. You can see all the horrible stuff up in the water in the column, so I just let it all settle a little bit as well. I caught JP, put him in the one container. I caught Wiz and put him into the next container. I think you can see the zoas actually in there. So the zoas were in there, I didn't remove them. And you can't really see him, but Wiz is in there somewhere. He just instantly dove to the bottom of the tank, pushed himself up against some rocks, and you couldn't see him. So this was just a sort of soil cleaning or siphoning tool, what do they call it, a gravel vac, that I was using to empty the tank. I don't have it. Oh yeah, and there's Lopez. You can see he's just not himself. I feel very sad for him. Anyway, so this is what the house looked like, running the sand vac or the gravel vac to empty the tank water. And I was doing my best not to siphon out too much stuff from the sand. The house was pretty much just covered in aquarium equipment all over the place. I was trying really hard not to kick up too much stuff from the sand, because I wanted to try and keep the muddied water in. There's my right foot, in case you're wondering. I wanted to try and keep this sort of cloudy water in the tank and try and get the that's the level that I emptied it to, where my finger was, just to keep the sand covered. Now I was concerned that the overflow box was going to leak, so like water would seep in through that back left hand side, and end up filling up the back, even though it needs to be dry, because you can see there. So it turns out that it wasn't leaking, but those holes, if it was leaking, my car would have been soaked. So anyway, now there was a tragedy, another tragic loss. As I was trying to clean out the MP10, I always have a hard time getting this cover off, and I broke it. So there we have the one cover part of the MP10 snapped. I always find it very hard to loosen it and get it off. So now I've got a slightly different shaped outlet on that. So hopefully it all's fine. Now there's my little labels. Turned out that I forgot to stick some of them on the plugs. But anyway, so all the water out, fish in their containers, there they are. So the blue lids and the white boxes, the white buckets are 20 liters. The other ones are 25 liter, the blue and the black lid, and the other stuff in there's just got some dry and wet equipment. So we used the Hyundai fleet, my car and my dad's car, to try and get the stuff out. So we put the cabinet and the water from the sump into my dad's car, and in my car we put the actual sump itself with JP, Wiz, and Danny. Now I think it was somewhere in here that Danny got crushed, so we'll get to that, but it's all over. This is where I put the frags. Now the issue with driving with water is that it's no matter how much is in there, I try to put only about half. It is so hard to keep it from splashing. So I put a towel over the top to see what would happen. Now while I was driving, I had to put something else on top of it to try and keep the towel from falling in. So looking over my shoulder, there's wasn't it a song? There is, this is in one of the intersections. Now, the interesting thing about going from where I was living to where I'm currently living is that it is, you can see all the frags, they all fell over, they all got smashed to one side, and I think Lopez must have defecated about 12 times in there. Just, what can you do? Anyway, I tried. So at the new place, there is the, put this all down, and now what we were trying to do is plan how to put this all together. So what we've got at the moment there is the cabinet up not in its place, but just up with the other little frags on top. After that, I put the other little pump back in there to circulate some water. So now what was the plan was to get that stuff in. We went back home where I was to my old house and fetched the display tank, which had just a little bit of water in it still. So there it is there, and that's how much water was in the tank when I transported it. Now the cleanup crew was still in there, so it did splash around a little bit, but not too much. Now the interesting thing, which you'll see now, is that this is the second half of the journey. All right, so now from where I stay to where I used to stay to our new place, there are about 9 traffic circles, huge ones like this. So now, if you've ever tried to turn around a traffic circle at a reasonable speed that the person behind you doesn't start swearing at you and throwing stuff at you, but also slow enough that you don't splash water everywhere, it's practically impossible. Over here, the centrifugal force, big word, the force basically just splashes everything. Now this is the street where I live, so this area here is in North Lakes, it's north of Brisbane, and so all these turns and turns and turns, water splashing left and right. So when I transported the actual fish and the live rock and everything, I sealed the lids completely. So there wasn't any real diffusion or oxygen exchange on the water surface because the bucket was closed, but it helped that it could splash a little bit without my car getting wet. So here's the street, and up in front you'll see a little black Hyundai Getz, and that is the house that we live in. So it's pretty much one there. So display tank on top. At this point, the sump was filled up with all the water that came from the sump. We put the keto back. That's when I found out that Danny was no more at that stage. Poor guy. So this is all the equipment that we had to take across. So we're talking about putting the plumbing back in and the electronics, and there was a lot to do, and I completely underestimated it. It probably took total, this is us just quickly rescaping. So I chucked the rock in, I made sure it was stable, and I got my dad to hold that, and we used an old return pump that I had lying around and just put water back in the tank. So here we were just filling up the tank again. That was pretty solid, that rock work, so I'm confident it shouldn't fall, and the MP10 doesn't generate that much flow that it's going to push it over. Now at this point I was trying to get as quickly as we could to move all the corals back into the tank. All I needed was just get some circulation, get the skimmer running, and it was happy. Now this is what it looked like after its first fill. So everything plugged in, everything on, all the buckets empty, and all the equipment in. Now I lost about 10, maybe 12 liters of water in the move, so the sump level was sitting lower than I would have liked it. So the skimmer didn't really do anything for the first 24 hours because I actually had to. And my plan was to make that look nice, but it didn't work. So I'm going to IKEA in the next couple of days to go and get a cabinet to set up next to it. So that first little reactor thing is going to have the roa in, which it does now. The roa is in there, the roa phos, and keto is growing well. It's very little algae so far, any other kind of algae, and yeah, so none of the corals opened immediately. You can see the top of my head there if you're interested. None of the corals opened immediately, but as it stands now, you would have seen a video that I posted this morning that has all the corals open. Everyone is happy. So thanks so much for watching the video. Please like it and share it and subscribe to my channel. Yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.